My friend, what happened today in Jerusalem has left the world in awe and trembling. Picture it, the cradle of faith, the city that has stood at the intersection of heaven and earth for millennia, suddenly shrouded in an unnatural darkness. There was no warning, neither from meteorologists nor scientists, just an enveloping blackness swallowing the golden stones, the ancient walls, and the bustling markets. For a moment, time seemed to freeze, and all that could be heard were anxious whispers, mingling with prayers echoing off the Temple Mount. You can imagine the scene as thousands stood motionless, their faces lifted towards a sky that refused to give light. The air was thick with fear and awe, mothers clutching children, elders murmuring ancient psalms, soldiers gripping their weapons, unsure of what was happening. The sound of the shofar seemed to vibrate in the very soul of the city, stirring memories of plagues and deliverance, of divine judgment and salvation. In that heavy silence, a question weighed on every heart. Is this a sign? And if so, what or who is coming? This will shock you. Such a moment was foretold in the ancient scrolls, and every shadow over Jerusalem is etched with prophetic meaning. The prophet Joel warned, "The sun will be turned into darkness and the moon into blood before the great and dreadful day of the Lord comes." Joel 2:31. Today that darkness did not wait for an eclipse or a blood moon. It descended, sudden and unexplained, as if some unseen hand pulled a veil between heaven and earth. Imagine the reactions across Israel. Televisions flickering with breaking news, prime ministers and rabbis convening in urgent meetings, the Israeli Defense Forces heightening their alert as tension built at the city gates. Social media erupted in panic and speculation, some calling it a mere atmospheric anomaly, others declaring with trembling conviction, "This is it. The prophetic clock is ticking." Think of how the citizens of Jerusalem felt that very hour. The fear was not just of darkness, but of what or who might be walking in the shadows. Whispers of the Antichrist intensified, reverberating through underground prayer groups and in the synagogues. The old prophecies resurfaced. Let no one deceive you, for that day will not come unless the rebellion comes first, and the man of lawlessness is revealed, the son of destruction. 2 Thessalonians 2:3. Do you feel the gravity of that moment? The darkness was more than night. It was as if history itself paused to catch its breath, as if the final act foretold in the scriptures was stirring to life. This is just the beginning. The world is watching Jerusalem, the prophetic epicenter, as the stage is set for the coming of the Antichrist. What happened today is a warning, the kind that demands not just attention, but a deep searching of the soul. And as the city emerges, still shivering from the chill of the shadow, the questions grow louder. Could this be the final sign before the rise of the deceiver? What happens next will shake your very understanding of history, prophecy, and the world as we know it. Get ready. What unfolds in the coming chapters will reveal just how close we stand to the cosmic hour, marked out by God Himself. As the sun refused to rise over Jerusalem, a wave of unease swept not just across Israel but around the world. City streets filled with murmurs, news crews scrambled for live coverage, while ambassadors and diplomats demanded briefings. Every eye turned to Jerusalem, searching for meaning in the mysterious darkness. My friend, you won't believe the ripples this event sent through every layer of society. Inside synagogues, churches, and mosques, voices joined in confusion, desperation, and urgent prayer. On every channel, experts and religious leaders argued over the cause. But the spiritual undercurrent was unmistakable. Prophecy was on everyone's lips. Social media exploded with images and testimonies, people in tears beside the Western Wall, children clinging to their parents, and crowds huddled in candlelit homes. The fragile peace of Jerusalem, already battered by conflict and division, seemed to hang by a thread. Some said it was technological failure or atmospheric anomaly. Others saw the hand of God, recalling the words, "And on that day, declares the Lord, I will make Jerusalem a cup that sends all the surrounding peoples reeling." Zechariah 12:2. The government responded swiftly, halting all non-essential activities. Construction, commerce, and even tourist gatherings were suspended as an air of uncertainty suffocated the city. Security forces took up positions at key sites, wary not just of physical threats, but of spiritual panic turning into chaos. In the midst of it all stood the local religious authorities, the rabbis, the patriarchs, the imams, urging calm. But their voices faltered as the situation defied explanation. Across the airwaves, Christian broadcasters in America and Europe declared, "A miracle in the darkness," quoting passages from Joel and Revelation, and comparing this hour to the judgment on Egypt or the signs foretold before the return of Christ. Arab and Jewish leaders debated the symbolism, some insisting it was a political omen tied to ongoing peace talks and the looming possibility of a new world order in the Middle East. Meanwhile, events in Gaza and the West Bank seemed to take on new importance. Calls for peace clashed with mounting tension, and the Israeli Defense Forces moved with increased vigilance. Humanitarian organizations, already under strain from recent conflicts and crises, began sounding the alarm as rumors swirled of further escalation amidst the darkness. Churches throughout the Holy Land, struggling under economic and political pressure, urged the world to wake up, warning that the spiritual battle for Jerusalem was entering a new, harrowing phase. Prophetic voices grew louder. Was this darkness just the prelude to the rise of the deceiver, the one Scripture calls the man of lawlessness? The whispers merged with warning, echoing Revelation. The fifth angel poured out his bowl, and darkness covered the kingdom of the beast. Revelation 16:10. This city, so often a signpost for the world's fate, seemed once more to stand at the crossroads of time and eternity. Stay close, for what comes next will reveal secrets hidden for generations. As Jerusalem stands in the shadow, the world's destinies are being written in real time, fulfilling the very prophecies that once seemed distant and unimaginable. The prophetic clock is ticking, and its hands now point to Jerusalem. My friend, the darkness that swept over Jerusalem is more than a headline. It is a sign that pierces through time, echoing the very words of the prophets. In the hours that followed, scientists and meteorologists searched for answers, but none could truly explain the chilling shadow that blanketed the holy city. The news tickers kept spinning possible causes: volcanic ash, solar storms, atmospheric inversions. But the people of Jerusalem knew, deep in their souls, that this was different. This was marked with the fingerprints of prophecy. You won't believe how the mood in Jerusalem shifted. Panic mingled with awe, and crowds began to gather at the sites that have witnessed centuries of fulfilled promises and unfulfilled hopes. The Mount of Olives, the old city gates, the very streets where prophets once walked. The haunting silence that followed was heavy with expectation, as if everyone, Jew and Gentile alike, felt the weight of a coming revelation. There will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven, Jesus warned in Luke 21:11. Every eye searched the horizon for something more. Could there be another sign? All at once, the ancient prophecies were on everyone's lips. Amos foretold, "In that day, declares the sovereign Lord, I will make the sun go down at noon and darken the earth in broad daylight." Amos 8:9. The scrolls had predicted days when the heavens would speak, when darkness and trembling would precede earth-shaking change. For centuries, scholars debated whether these words were metaphor or mystery, but today, no one could deny the literal darkness pressing in on Jerusalem's sacred stones. Imagine the atmosphere, the heavy air, the shaking hands lighting candles inside synagogues and churches from the old city to the new. Orthodox Jews and Christian pilgrims found themselves united in prayer, desperate for understanding and protection. Children clung to their parents as rumors of the Antichrist's approach ricocheted through social circles, WhatsApp groups, and underground assemblies. Some called it mass hysteria. Others called it a wake-up call, a trumpet blast from heaven itself. This will shock you. Across the world, reports began to emerge of strange occurrences, flickering lights in the night sky, unusual weather patterns and political chaos breaking out in capitals far from Jerusalem. Each time Israel shakes, the world feels it, for Jerusalem is God's prophetic clock. When its hands move, destinies are altered and empires are warned. Daniel saw this moment in his visions, a time of distress such as has not happened before. Daniel 12, verse 1. And do you sense the urgency? The world stands on the brink of unprecedented change, just as the prophets wrote. Many felt the spiritual atmosphere shift, as if a curtain was torn open in the unseen realm. Leaders, both secular and religious, no longer whisper but openly declare that the boundaries between the natural and supernatural are fading. Questions turn into consternation. If darkness can fall so suddenly, what else could manifest on the world stage? Who or what is next? My friend, we are not merely watching history. We are living prophecy. The darkness is not just a sign for Israel, but for every nation on earth. Brace yourselves. The days of warning are closing, and what comes after will forever change the destiny of those who refuse to see the signs. Could this be the day when the restraints are removed, and the Antichrist steps into the spotlight? As the people of Jerusalem silently emerged into a hesitant daylight, everyone knew in their hearts the world had shifted. Something ancient had stirred, and the next act would bring not just answers, but confrontations with truth proclaimed in the Scriptures. The revelation has just begun, and the journey into the prophetic unknown is far from over. My friend, as the final traces of darkness retreated from the stones of Jerusalem, a new fear settled upon the people, deeper and more unsettling than the darkness itself. There was a sense, almost palpable, that something or someone had been set in motion, that the time of deception had drawn frighteningly close. You won't believe how quickly rumors and theories about the Antichrist, the great deceiver spoken of by prophets and apostles alike, ignited across the city and echoed far beyond its ancient walls. In living rooms and cafes, at checkpoints and synagogues, conversations turned from disbelief to dread. Could this darkness be the forerunner, the sign that the one who opposes all that is holy is about to appear? Many older Jerusalemites recalled stories their grandparents had whispered during times of war and upheaval, tales of supernatural darkness as a harbinger of calamity. But this time the warnings felt more real, more immediate. In many hearts the words of John the Revelator rang out, "Children, it is the last hour. And as you have heard that Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have come." 1 John 2:18. The spiritual atmosphere thickened. Trusted leaders began to urge their flocks to vigilance. "Watch and pray," they said, "for false saviors will arise, performing signs and wonders so as to deceive, if possible, even the elect." Matthew 24:24. The haunting idea seized the city. Had the deception begun? Would the coming days bring a figure so convincing, so charismatic, that nations would bow and even Jerusalem's guardians be tempted to believe? The prophetic warnings echoed in every heart. Paul had foretold that the coming of the lawless one would be by the activity of Satan with all power and false signs and wonders. 2 Thessalonians 2:9. Many recalled the chilling prophecy, "He will oppose and will exalt himself over everything that is called God or is worshipped, so that he sets himself up in God's temple, proclaiming himself to be God." 2 Thessalonians 2:4. The Temple Mount, silent under the weight of the day's events, became once more the center of end-time speculation. Who will ascend this mount next? You can almost feel the tension in the air, the sense that the old boundaries have shifted, and spiritual forces are being unleashed on a scale not seen for generations. Some claim to have seen strange figures moving in the shadows during the darkness. Others reported voices, whispering words they barely understood. But all agreed the city had changed. And so had the world. This will shock you. For centuries, Jerusalem has been the battleground for kings and empires. But the battle that is rising now is not just for land or power, but for truth, for souls, for the very worship that belongs only to the one true God. The deception won't come with obvious evil. It will arrive in the form of false hope, peace treaties, promises of security, and dazzling solutions to age-old conflicts. Only those anchored in the Scriptures, who know the shepherd's voice, will discern the difference between liberation and enslavement. Once again, Jerusalem finds itself under the gaze of the world, but the players in this drama are more than flesh and blood. The sorrow and awe on the faces of her people signal a city on prophetic alert, a city bracing for the appearance of the one the Bible calls the man of sin. Never before has the warning felt so urgent, so real. And in the uneasy quiet that settles after the storm, a question lingers in the hearts of millions. Are we right now living on the threshold of the very deception that the prophets and apostles saw from afar? In the coming moments, prepare to witness how the next steps of this prophetic drama will converge, faster and more dramatically than ever, setting the stage for the ultimate confrontation between light and darkness. My friend, as the shadows fade and the city awakens from the grip of this surreal darkness, the message is unmistakable. Jerusalem stands at the dawn of reckoning. This is not merely about a celestial anomaly, It is the heralding of an era foretold in the very words of God's prophets. The walls that have witnessed centuries of faith, fear, hope, and betrayal now brace themselves for the fulfillment of prophecies that have echoed through the ages. This city is the pivot on which the fate of the world will turn. You won't believe how the sense of urgency grips the hearts of believers and skeptics alike. The scriptures reveal that before the return of Christ, the Antichrist must be revealed, setting himself up in opposition to all that is sacred, deceiving many. 2 Thessalonians 2:3-4. Jerusalem today is the prophetic epicenter from which this figure's terrifying influence will spread, as the city itself is the stage of God's cosmic drama. The darkness was a divine precursor, a warning signal blaring to every soul that the clock is winding down. Imagine the sacred places, the Temple Mount, the Western Wall, the Mount of Olives, once again at the confluence of heaven and earth, tension mounting like the silence before a storm. Pilgrims gather in trembling anticipation, sensing that the pages of prophecy are turning before their eyes. The scent of ancient incense seems to linger in the air, mingling with the prayers that rise like smoke to heaven. From the narrow alleys of the old city to the modern streets, the whispers grow louder. The king is coming. The deceiver is near. This will shock you. Political alliances are shifting like sand beneath Jerusalem's feet. Peace talks and treaties that once promised hope now seem like mirrors reflecting deeper conflicts and a coming betrayal. The biblical warnings about times of peace that suddenly break into war are unfolding with chilling precision. 1 Thessalonians 5:3. As global powers turn their gaze to Israel, Jerusalem itself becomes the prize in the ultimate spiritual and geopolitical battle. But amidst the turmoil and fear, there is also profound hope. The prophets did not only speak of darkness, but also the coming of the Savior, the Son of David, who will return to reclaim Jerusalem and bring everlasting peace. Zechariah 14:9. The world may tremble under the weight of deception and chaos, but for those who hold fast to the word, who watch and pray, there awaits a glorious dawn. Jerusalem's skies may have darkened, but the light of prophecy burns brighter than ever. This darkness is the prelude to the greatest awakening humanity has ever seen, the revealing of the final deceptive prince and the victorious return of Christ. The signs have converged, the countdown has begun, and the ancient city stands ready, caught in the eye of the prophetic storm. As we close this chapter, remember, you are witnessing not just history, but prophecy in motion. Jerusalem is the prophetic heartbeat of the end times. The darkness today was not the end, but the beginning. And the question remains, will you see the signs and stand firm when the tide of deception rises? The time is now. The moment is here. Blessed are the people who know the joyful sound and respond. Pes 89:15. If this blast awakened you, subscribe and turn on the bell to stay watchful with us. Share this and leave your prayer request in the comments. Between fear and hope, we choose the word. Matthew 24:35. Stay with us. The next blast could come at any moment.